and turn it back over to Dr. Ron. Okay, so I am Stephanie Alexander. You probably received an email from me. I'm the Director of Outreach for Fusion Academy. We have 3 campuses in Houston. We have the Woodlands, Sugarland, and the Galleria locations. So we are a nationwide company. We have about 67 campuses. We are one-to-one personalized education. So we see a lot of kiddos who come in with anxiety and depression. They might be bullied, might be dealing with LGBTQ issues. Or they just might need a flexible schedule. So they're athletes, they're trying to make the national team, or they're just trying to fly through school as quickly as they can. So we offer, like I said, one-on-one personalized, fully accredited education, 6th through 12th grade. So if you have any questions, my information is in the chat and you can reach out. And so that's Fusion Academy. So now I'm going to take off my Fusion hat and I'm going to put on my Julie Pomerantz Hub School hat and introduce her school. It stands for Heard, Understood, Believed in. And so her school specifically works with kiddos who are typically on the spectrum, or they might have some sort of other kind of neurodiverse things going on, but they're a great school as well. They really focus on their kiddos. They really try to reach them wherever they are. And they also have the Life Skills 101 program, which is for some of their older kiddos and tries to kind of give them those life skills that they're going to need to find a job, to be productive. So that is 2 schools in the area for you. So I'm going to hand it over to Pam to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Pam Esser. I'm Executive Director of ADA Southern Region. We serve those with ADHD and coexisting disorders. We have free support groups that are currently virtual. We'll make a decision in January whether we go back to in-person or not. And then we have educational events. We just had Russell Barkley, and we have some things coming up with Dr. Ari Tuckman. And so we have a variety of things. We hope you'll check us out. We're glad you're here.
And I want to introduce Morgan Prather, who's going to be doing co-presenting with me today. Morgan, you want to tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Morgan Prather. I work as an academic coach at Staying Ahead of the Game. I spend my days meeting with teenagers, helping them navigate school and conditions that affect their ability to develop executive functioning skills, generally preparing them to graduate high school and hopefully go to college.
Great, thank you, Morgan. And that's why Morgan's with me on this, because this is her area of expertise, and I've been working in this area with these failure to launch children for a long time. I'm Dr. Ron Swatzyna with the Houston Neuroscience Brain Center, and we're located over here off Kirby Drive, just north of 59, and love to work with all ages from 4 all the way up to 72 or 76, maybe 78. We'll go all the way. It doesn't matter to us. Brains are brains. And so that's our specialty. We're a center that really wants to get to the bottom of what's causing a person's symptoms, regardless of what we call it. I think parents and everybody are pretty frustrated. Therapists, even doctors, psychiatrists are frustrated with those cases that come in and they try one med and it doesn't work, and they try another med and it doesn't work, and they keep going on and on and on until you feel like you're just a test dummy. So it's something I've been dedicated to do. I do a lot of research, publish my research, and we do a lot of training up young people to basically take over for me eventually. That's my master plan. So you got to have a plan B in this world. So with that said, I guess we can go ahead and get started. We are recording this, so anybody that misses it will be able to get a copy of this. I'll share my screen. And okay, if it works. Failure to launch. This is something that's been very near and dear to me for many years. Starting way back in 2004, 2003, when I came to work here, actually. This was one of the things that really bothered me when I came and started working and trying to work with adolescents getting ready to go to college, or those that had went to college and had one semester or whatever and failed out. I am getting distracted here by trying to admit all these people. So I hope they're in now. I could give that over to you, but we'll go on with it. And this is these are the young people that came from really good families, had very good parents, and yet the children didn't have what it took in order to launch into adulthood. And so when I had a recent patient who's in college right now, have some issues, and it all came back to the same thing. He did get into college, but he's still relying so much on his parents for the simple things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why isn't this working? There you go. So this is the first graph that Morgan actually put together for me. And what this is on the one axis, the 100%, when a child is born, they rely on the parents 100% for doing everything. Obviously, parents' investment is 100% in 0 years old. By the time they hit 6 years old, they're starting to do some things for themselves, and 7 and 8, and you can see the trajectory go on on all the way down to they're 18, 19 years old, to where it bottoms out. And this is where parents should no longer be spending this kind of time in their parenting, for instance. And so I projected it out over a lifetime because there's something that we need to know. That line that goes up right here that signifies children between the ages of middle school and, I guess, 5th grade and 6th grade, let's put it there. There's no way you can convince a child they should have less time to have fun when they're going from 5th grade to 6th grade. And so they want to have more fun because now they can do more things. And this is something I found pretty constant, that those who chose not basically to decrease the amount of effort they were putting into life, but continue to have fun, it would create all sorts of problems with them, with school, with everything else. I had this came to mind, and I created this concept because when a child is born, your parenting should be at 100%, and when they're 18, it should be down to 0. And this is the facts of life. It's not our job as parents to make our children happy. It's our job to prepare them for independent function. And parents don't seem to understand that. They want their children to be happy. Actually, I find it quite pleasing when I get these guys tell me, I can't wait to move out of the house. I look at their parents and I go, great job, because that's what the purpose is. You want to have that kind of autonomy to say, I want to be on my own. I want to make my own decisions. Okay, so that's one of the good things I do see. So the parenting needs to be at 0 when they hit their last semester of their senior year. That's my concept of it. And so in regard to doing that, parents have got to start promoting and allowing their children to take over more aspects of their life throughout this process. And that's what this program, that's what this talk is going to be about. And so when these 2 high school students came up to me and they said, Dr. Ron, my junior and senior year should be the best of my life. And it kind of stumped me because I thought about that, and I said, let me look at this. If your high school years are the best of your life, meaning you're having fun, you just have the biggest blast of your life, then they probably will be, because when you go off to college, you're not going to make it. You're going to come back home defeated and have to have a job without a college education. That's going to mean you're going to have the rest of your life to pay for that 6-year period of time, junior, senior, middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade through high school. Most of the time you can't drive. If their dating is really not much of an option for many of us in those years. You don't have any money. You can't do what you want to. So they're really not the best years of your life. But if you try to make them, they will end up being so, because we got to get them prepared for becoming totally independent, fully functioning, tax-paying citizens, in my opinion. Okay, Morgan, let's go ahead and get into your slides.
All right then. So in addition to getting used to sacrificing fun, children are expected to become more dependent as they age. Ideally, the parent just kind of releases control over the child's life, to be picked up by the child themselves. The goal is for a person to have control over their life and be able to regulate themselves by the time they go to college, so that when they're faced with these situations that they may not have full experience with, they don't necessarily crash and burn. They can function on their own. This process doesn't always happen easily. And so Dr. Ron and I work together to come up with some things that might make the process easier. Dr. Ron, can you change the slide for me? Thank
All I need
you.
is cue me in. I'll do what you say.
All right. So these are some characteristics that we've identified together that might hinder a person's success at college. The main idea behind these characteristics is that they are not intrinsic or inherent to a person. They are learned or acquired through not learning other skills to replace them. Instant gratification being a very big one, tending to act on impulse or not being able to resist an immediate want. Fear of failure, being so uncomfortable in unfamiliar situations that you never engage with them in the first place. Over-reliance on others is pretty self-explanatory, depending too much on others. Complacency, I think of in this context as not being able to regulate yourself or choosing to not progress in something that is important to you or those you live with, whether it be grades, health, finances, whatever. And finally, lack of direction. I remember when I was younger, I remember not having a path set in front of me was very overwhelming. Thank God I found one, but if you don't find a direction to put all your effort into, you can just be floating around through life. Very scary, unfulfilling, generally not great. Next slide, please, Dr. Ron.
One thing I want to add in here is the concept of delayed gratification is something that we end up getting when we learn how to play a guitar, how to ride a bicycle, how to put effort into something. And school is delayed gratification. It's a lot of work for a lot of years to get a piece of paper to go on to the next lot of work in a lot of years. Now, the problem is that we have right now, and I want to hit this because this is something I've presented on quite a bit, about the deadly effects of video gaming on young minds, on young brains, on young people. And I see it more so on males than females, because males get more so into the video gaming. But then we have the social media, which is more of a female addiction. But that's instant gratification. I mean, right away, as soon as you get to the next level, they put up another level on top of that. But it's instant gratification. And I think this constant bombardment of instant gratification basically takes, why should I spend all this effort and time when I can go and play a video game and, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, and I don't have to worry about failure because I can just hit delete or start over and you don't have to worry about it. So a lot of the things that are out there for these children right now that they get exposed to is not teaching delayed gratification. I'd rather see them get involved in a martial arts class than being able to beat the fool out of somebody as a cyber entity on a video game. So, but then again, that causes pain and that takes time to develop those skill sets. And so if they keep getting bombarded with being able to be this great hero in the cyber world, the real world doesn't play by the same game. So that's my part about the delayed gratification. I think there's a real issue, and I think it's inhibiting a lot of children. I've done other discussions with Dr. Ron Pryor on that issue back there with video gaming. All these can be found in our YouTube video site. See if I can get this thing to change now. There you go.
So these are some solutions. Oh goodness, can y'all hear that? I think it might be fixed now. Awesome. Okay, cool. So these are some proposed solutions to the challenges that we've already talked about. Addressing gratification is challenging, but important. And really, the way you go about addressing gratification is working on helping your child develop self-control and the ability to recognize when one, quote, reward is more beneficial than the other. Instead of being afraid of new situations, a child can learn problem-solving skills through various forms of exploration. They can build self-reliance and work ethic through age-appropriate chores. They can learn self-regulation through responsibility management. And finally, helping a child choose a direction in their life by teaching them how to actually build goals.
Can you go into a little more about the responsibility management? That's a little unclear.
Yeah, of course. I was going to go into this later, but
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I can't go into more detail just preemptively. Responsibility management does sound kind of vague. It's basically just self-regulation in regards to responsibilities and getting stuff done. Stuff like prioritization, time management, those executive functioning skills that can be very challenging to grasp for some people, especially starting at an early age.
Okay, great.
Right. Cool. Addressing gratification, goal-oriented self-control. Instant gratification, like Dr. Ron talked about, has been some buzzwords you hear a lot lately. A good way for children to develop the ability to delay gratification is modeling self-control for kids as well as talking about it. You can also do your own experiment at home to kind of see where a child is at. The first one was called the Stanford Marshmallow experiment. It's very famous now. You can do it at home, offer small reward versus, more of a reward that they have to wait for and see what happens. You want to aim for them to be able to wait for the bigger reward. Although self-control can be practiced, it is not really considered to be an infinite source. So ideally, you want to use your pure will, so to speak, when making very important decisions, resisting really tempting temptations, and other methods can help supplement your will for the less important decisions. Methods that can help supplement it are things like distractions. They work for really any age, and depending on what age it is, they might be different. And Chris Williams has asked me to explain why self-control is not an infinite source. I've been reading up on this since I was in college because it seems very interesting, but also not necessarily what you're taught by your parents, depending on how you grow up. In a lot of studies, there's been a lot of evidence that shows the more you have to use your pure will, your pure determination, the harder it gets to resist temptation until the next time you sleep, essentially, or that you get some good rest. So I guess what I mean by is not an infinite source is that the more you rely on pure will, the harder it is to successfully use pure will to resist a temptation. I hope that answers the question a bit more.
I see that being a very prominent issue with those trying to quit video gaming, for instance.
Exactly. Yes.
It drives them crazy. You got to do something else, exercise instead of playing a video game. Are you nuts? Drawing?
Yeah. Exactly. So when using pure will starts to get a bit tough, there are things you can do to kind of add on to the pure will that makes it easier to actually achieve that self-control. One of them being distractions, like I was saying a minute ago. Another one for the younger kids is walking children through the thought process of weighing the benefits of two choices. It helps them, be able to do it on their own, but it also helps them kind of slow down. Talking it out makes them slow down, really consider different factors of the issue, and it becomes a stronger habit as they grow up.
I saw the question come through about the dopamine system that we have for rewards for instant gratification. That's the system we're trying to fight against, because dopamine is what keeps us driving towards a goal to get what we want. And we're fighting the neurochemistry of instant gratification, which, you know, if you're starving to death, dopamine kicks in to make you want to go out and get something to eat or kill something if you're back in the Stone Age. But so this is a very difficult thing to fight. That's why sleeping, you have that sleeping break can actually break that dopamine cycle. And then you get up the next day, okay, all right, it's not there in your face. And but there is a system, the neurochemical system in your brain that keeps you striving for what you want, because it's that drive that we have, and there's a reason for it. But then again, it can sabotage our lives as well. And we're getting into substance abuse. Oh my gosh, you talk about hijacking your dopamine system. We can do a whole session on that. So we'll go on from there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Very welcomed. In addition to substance abuse, there's a lot of things in this presentation that could be its own entire conversation. So, although it's good to talk through these things with your children, talk to them about what their thought processes are, it's also helpful to actually model self-control for kids, because they do learn by mimicking adults, right? Talking out loud when resisting an impulse can really, really work. I've done this myself when meeting with teenagers. Seems to work better on the younger ones, but helpful nonetheless. And also a very, very important point to making this work is the reliable environment for the kid itself. If the thing is, the kid has to actually believe that they will get the bigger reward later on. In the eyes of the child, the parent has to be reliable and seen as keeping their word often enough so that the child actually believes they will get the reward. If they don't believe that they'll get the reward if they wait, then they'll prefer the immediate one so they can have one at all.
And that also goes to the point about children when they're very young. They'll be in a store with their parents, and then they'll want a toy. And they'll start, I want the toy, and they'll start making a scene. And they'll get louder and louder and louder and make more and more of a deal until they get their way. And this starts out right away being how we teach children to throw a fit to get their way. Now, being that I'm in this profession, you got to train not only your children, but you got to train your animals too. So we had this new little baby cat. So at 2 a.m, this baby cat jumps on top of me and knows that, and thinks that it can get me up to go be fed. So I go to walk out the door. The cat goes walking out the door, running out the door, thinking I'm going to feed it. I slam the door behind me. I go back to bed. I stop that procedure right there on the spot. That's where the parents need to come in and say, put up the hard boundaries, and so that they can know that you're dependable. When you say you're going to do something, you will do it, and they're not just going to be able to throw a fit and get their way. So, sorry, I wanted to jump down. You're spurring all sorts of thoughts in my history here. All right, let's go on to the next slide, correct?
Yes. All right. Problem. Oh. Okay. It's gone. Problem solving. Specifically as opposed to being afraid to fail. This was something else I also had personal experience with growing up, but my parents really helped me get through it, specifically through exploration. Then I started reading up on it and I realized, oh, my parents know what they're talking about. Good for them. Problem solving is essential to being a functioning adult. The skill can start being developed super young, younger than it was for me. Reading is one way. Being exposed to many different ideas really just helps facilitate the ability to think of many different solutions and problems that the kid might face. More than that, reading also often creates new neural pathways and strengthens existing ones, meaning simply that the brain is well connected, information can travel quickly. So not only are they used to thinking of different solutions to ideas, but they can do them faster than they might have if they didn't enjoy reading. Going outside and physically exploring one's surroundings lets children learn to be more comfortable in unfamiliar situations. It also helps them to develop the ability to judge their own limitations. They may think that walking a mile along the bayou with their dog is doable, but in reality, they might get tired much quicker. Knowing their limitations opens up to the ability to decide how they can then overcome those limitations, and then they become accustomed to that process as well. We are social animals. It makes sense that social interaction is good for children. Learning that there are many different types of people, even more kinds of ways to interact with them, and how those interactions might change depending on the situation, can help make a good foundation for more complex social skills in the future.
This is the reason I wanted to do this presentation, because since COVID lockdown started, we've got now almost 2 years, a year and a half of children's social interactions being greatly reduced. And I've got quite a few that I'm treating right now that have a very difficult time with the concept of going back to school. They have these social anxieties. They're not used to communicating face to face with people anymore. And it's much easier if you can just stay in your room and communicate on on your cell phone or on your computer. So that's created a deficit, or has retarded the social development of these young people. And I think we're going to see a big influx of issues when these get to be college-age children, because they're still apprehensive about that social interaction at a very critical time, especially going through puberty. My gosh, that is so critical to have that social interaction, to find out what is appropriate behavior with others and what's inappropriate behavior. So this is a big deal right now because of COVID and the lockdowns and everything else. These children are 2 years behind where they should be, at the least. Continue, please. I'm sorry. It's all yours, Morgan.
Thank you. So preparedness is another aspect of problem solving. Thinking ahead and preparing for possible situations can be even more difficult than simple preparedness. One way to help build it is using if-then practice with a child. You know, if this happens, what you'll do? What you're gonna do there? It helps the child start connecting actions to outcomes, and also helps the child develop an actual strong habit of thinking ahead and anticipating potential issues. When the parent has a problem going on themselves, they can also invite the child to help think of a solution. Apply the if-then situation to a problem that doesn't necessarily maybe affect the child, but they still get really good applied practice. It's also very important that the parents are prepared to not interfere with minor or moderate consequences of their child's actions. Instead of fixing it for them, the parent can help the child connect the dots of why things ended up this way, how they can fix it themselves, and how they can avoid it in the future. Lastly, growth mindset, another kind of buzzword the past few years, as opposed to a fixed mindset. It can help combat the fear of failure directly and ease the blow of discouragement that a kid might feel in the face of adversity. At its core, growth mindset is the idea that abilities are not fixed or intrinsic to a person, but they can always be learned or built upon. A parent can start instilling this mindset at a very young age by praising their child for things like effort, progress, persistence, learning, etc., instead of intrinsic qualities that the kid has no control over, like talent or luck. Getting your child to use the word yet can also help a lot, sometimes a surprising amount. It's very optimistic. Things like, you don't know how to do this yet, but you can learn how, or you can't do this yet, but you can get better.
And there comes a certain age where you stop being a manager of your child and you start to become an advisor. And I
Mhm.
think parents have a hard time making that shift between manager and advisor, and they're still trying to manage at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old instead of advise, and they're going to resist management. But you can, words like, well, you can do that. You can stay up all night, but you're going to pay a cost the next day. But go ahead and try it and see how that feels. You still have to go to school. You still have to do this and that and the other. But I'd advise you not to. But I mean, you're of that age. You can do it if you want to. But
Mhm.
there's a cost to it, and I can help you understand what the cost would be. So that's where that shifting from manager to advisor plays right into this growth mindset. Okay, well, and it's okay for them to test it, see what it feels like the next day, but they do have to go to school. They can't stay home saying sick. No, you're going to have to go and suffer through it. Then they'll learn. So that's that learning experience. Let them fail. I mean, my gosh, my life is full of failure. That's the best learning experience you can have. So once again, I jumped right in there, hijacked this conversation. All right, this is what you're looking at.
Right. Um, ooh. Were you ready? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
go for it. Sure.
All right. I believe we're actually on the slide before this.
We are.
I believe so. Yes, self-reliance.
It skipped one.
That's all right. Age-appropriate chores. Pretty much what it says here. It teaches your children about work ethic, humility, discipline, community living, which is, also draws on those foundational social skills, and conscientiousness. It can also give a sense of accomplishment and can help with self-confidence if a child starts to feel like they can't do things and aren't really using that yet habit. For so many different reasons, children tend to think of chores as annoying or useless as they get older. This can be avoided early if the idea of chores is associated with positive experiences, or more specifically, choices that the kid is allowed to make short of not doing the chore. Things like letting your kid choose music to play in the house while cleaning, pointing out how a clean home is less frustrating to live in, how it affects your mood. Even for younger kids, you can say, oh, look how many groceries you brought in, you're so strong. If/when your kid gets older, still stops doing chores because they're annoying, like Dr. Ron was saying, let them not do it and experience what happens when you don't take care of yourself or your surroundings. When they get frustrated, help them connect the dots between those emotions and their actions or lack thereof. Help them think of how the consequences will change as they get older. It's no longer, I'm emotionally frustrated because my room is clean. It's, I can't invite coworkers or friends to my house because they'll think I'm dirty. On the next slide, we have a big list of those age-appropriate chores. I particularly like the ones that build off of each other. For instance, toddlers can put their clothes in the hamper by themselves. They can do that.
They
Like
love
picking
to
up
do it,
a
in
toy.
fact. That's the amazing thing. Little kids would love to imitate and try to clean up. People just
Exactly.
let them go for it.
Exactly. And then what builds off of that, preschool age, they start sorting their own laundry. Primary school, they put away their own laundry now. Middle school, they're finally allowed to actually wash or dry their own clothes. There's a lot of age-appropriate chores that continue to build off of each other like this, and generally prepare them to be able to do them on their own. I particularly enjoy once they're high school age, the chore of helping parents with small home or auto repairs. I'm a big fan of that one. Not only does it promote, social interaction, helping others, but it's also just a good skill to have on your own to be able to do those small repairs.
One of the things about the definition of a healthy family is one in which each member of that family contributes to the health of each other member in that family. So from the smallest to the largest, you're all working together as a family unit. And I think that's what really distinguishes a healthy family from one that's not. Great, thanks.
All right.
Skip one?
Self,
No. Okay,
Yep.
got it. All right, there.
thank you. Self-regulation, do it for yourself. Reflection is important, yet also kind of an elusive skill for kids to learn sometimes. Connecting actions to their outcomes can feel like guesswork sometimes. But what parents can help their kids understand initially is that our actions don't exist just by themselves. There's always a cause and effect that happens. They affect us, our future, maybe, other people, our physical surroundings. And parents can help their kids think of how their actions are affecting all of these things. Once they develop the ability to reflect on their actions, it'll help them predict useful behaviors in the future and see where they can improve while progressing toward a goal. Image management. How do others see me? This is becoming increasingly important as social media becomes a regular part of life. How you are seen by others matters more than ever, but luckily you can control that to a certain extent. As they get older, parents can help their children be more aware of how they are perceived by others by helping them adopt the other person's point of view, which will take time. It's one of those executive functioning skills that can be kind of challenging, but practice always helps in the end. Asking questions like, what image are you making? Who's seeing it? How can you change or maintain it will help. And eventually they start asking those questions themselves. This is another one of those topics that can extend for an hour on its own. So I'm going to leave it at this unless Dr. Ron has anything to add.
Oh, that's good. Beautiful.
All right. Lastly, responsibility management. That aspect I mentioned earlier that seems so vague. This is the thing that I directly help kids with every day at Staying Ahead of the Game. Its two biggest components are time management, estimating time cost, effort cost, and motivation, and prioritization, which is at its core, how urgent is this task and when do I need to do it? Go back real quick. Yes, thank you. For time management, you really just need to know those three things. Effort cost is the difference between I have to read a chapter and I have to write an essay. Motivation is effective when it works. It is an emotion-based concept and it is quite fickle, especially in adolescence, which is why building self-reliance and discipline is more important. Effort, cost, and motivation level are closely related. If you have low motivation or discipline, then the task will always seem more costly than it is. Time cost is a common challenge for children, especially if they have ADHD or a related condition. But a rule of thumb that I use a lot and almost always works with practice is to always assume it will take longer, the task will take longer than you think. If the task takes that long, you now know how long it actually takes, and you're not losing any time that's supposed to be dedicated to other tasks. If you estimate how long it will take, overestimated how long it'll take, you now know how long it actually takes, plus now you're done early and you can get started on your next task. Dr. Ron has come up with his own way of conceptualizing prioritization that is, I've used a couple times and is effective for younger kids, but also for teenagers and older teens. Dr. Ron?
Okay, I came up with this years ago, and it's effective throughout a lifetime because I've worked with seasoned professionals who are terrible at prioritizing their time. People are very, very inefficient with what they do, and I like the KISS method, the keep it simple, stupid method. So I came up with this stoplight concept. The red stoplight, if you come up to a red light and you don't stop, you could die. These are absolutes you need to do every day. And absolutes in that category could be grooming, could be taking your medicines, could be making your appointments, could be going to school on time, could be, there's a lot of absolutes that we have to take care of. And for instance, for us, Let's think about the yellows just for instance. These are things that could be done later. They're not due right away. And I like the example of your taxes. On January, your taxes, doing your taxes are yellowed, put off for a later time. But by the time it gets to be April 15th, they are red. And so the concept here is you should get as many yellows out of the way as you possibly can so they don't become reds. So what this is all about is getting to the greens. The greens are fun things you like to do. This is what you want to do, what you want to spend your time on. So many times kids come home and hit their video games and put off their studies until 6 or 8 o'clock at night, and then they're a bear to get to do their homework. No, you should do, you shouldn't do any greens when you have reds still to do, and you haven't knocked out some of the yellows. So this is just an easy way we can fill this these yellows, reds, and greens in for each individual. And I think this is a process to go through. Going to the store and or getting gas. Well, if you're on half tank, it's a yellow. If you're on empty, it's a red. That whole concept works out pretty easily. I'd rather put it on 3/4 or less and get it filled up than I would wait to a red. Again, these are trying to teach how to prioritize your life. And if we teach children early in their lives to do what they should do first and fast, then they'll have more time for the greens. The problem is they do what they want to first, leave their what they have to for the end of the day, and it doesn't get done, or it gets done so poorly they have to redo it. So we go to work every morning, work hard all day for just maybe a couple hours off in the evenings where we can kick back and not have anything we have to do. But in that time, we have a priority. We have to take care of business first before we go on with the fun stuff. So we do want to have awards for what we've done for ourselves. But I talk to kids all the time. If you had to do something you don't like to do, would you rather do it fast or slow? Changing a dirty diaper, for instance. I would want to do it fast, not slow. Unloading the dishwasher. I'd want to do it fast, not slow, because I don't like to do it. How do you know if you're unloading a dishwasher too fast? You break something, back off a little bit. That's a little too fast. But that keeps it simple, Why do the things you hate to do? I did not care for my economics class in college. I don't like economics. So I took it in the summertime in one of those crammed courses to get that pain out of the way real quick. So I didn't have to tolerate it for a full 12 or 13, 14 weeks during the semester. Same thing. I think if we teach this up front, get the hard stuff out of the way first, and then you can cruise the rest of the evening. I show children all the time how to set up their schedules at school. When they go away to college, I get their syllabus out and I get their schedule out, and I can teach them how to make A's, mostly A's and B's, maybe a C or two, and still have evenings and weekends to do what they want to. But you've got to treat it like a job. You go to school, you schedule yourself. If you're not in a class, you're in a computer lab, a library, working ahead. If you do it like that, you'll have a great college experience and you'll make mostly A's and B's. And so this is something that when the people do try it, they find it works and they have a great college experience, rather than with the rest of their people trying to do their homework or pulling all-nighters, which is nuts, to finish a project. So if we can teach prioritization like this and get them to be more efficient with their time when they got to get their work done, I guarantee they'll have a lot more time. When I talk to children about, you want to learn how to manipulate your parents? God, the kids would love to hear this. I said, it's easy. You can get everything you want. And they get these big eyes and say, how do you do that? I said, comply. If you do what they say, guess what? You will have everything handed to you, because they won't have to harp on you about your homework, about your room, about your whatever there is in your life that's bothering them. If you comply, I guarantee they will give you anything. So they don't want to hear that comply part, but it's the truth. They still have to do it, but yet they lose all the privileges because they wait to the last minute. So prioritization is a big thing to teach children. All right, this is the next one.
Mhm.
Okay, yours.
All right. All right, building goals. This is another concept I deal with a lot directly with the kids that I work with. Up until now in this presentation, we've been talking about essentially how to get the fuel, but now we need a destination, right? Having a goal in itself can help with motivation, but I believe it's more important to focus on how to decide on a path rather than relying on a goal just for motivation. Goals need to be, especially for younger children, goals need to be specific, realistically achievable, and something startable, something a child can start doing instead of stop. An example with that would be, instead of stop throwing your clothes on the floor when you change, start putting them in the hamper, right? If the child has had the opportunity to explore many different ideas, situations, people, then they can choose an experience they liked and go for it, make it into a goal. You have experience with it already. Now that the child has practice connecting their actions to their outcomes, they can assess where they are in their path already and predict future actions that will help them progress toward their goals. And now that the child can rely on themselves to get things done instead of others, they can make meaningful progress in a goal of their choice and be a functioning adult while doing so. And we've finally arrived at the actual checklist of skills for going to college. Dr. Ron and I have both worked on this together, and we think these are the most important skills for surviving college and even succeeding maybe a little bit. Maybe managing their diet, obviously very important. You have to make sure your body can function for your things to go well, really, at all. Making appointments. For counselors and advisors at college, anxiety can get in the way of this a lot. Thinking about, oh, I'm just gonna hear how bad I'm doing. When that starts to keep you from even making the appointment, maybe you're not as prepared as you'd like to be. Making appointments for doctors is quite literally the application of long-term self-regulation. You got to keep doing that. Scheduling classes and actually going to them is a physical manifestation of time management. Regulating sleep involves the ability to delay gratification and regulate yourself simultaneously. Being able to weigh benefits of sleep versus the fun that comes with staying up late or going out a lot. And just like nutrition, also being aware of how lack of sleep can impact your mood and your functions. And finally, budgeting, a combination of responsibility management and the ability to connect your actions to the outcomes. I find personally that this one can be a bit challenging because it requires a person to sit down, take stock of what's happening, and try to use patterns that they can see to predict the future, which sounds very scary. But using examples and concepts that we've already been over in this presentation, they will already be better at this than they think they are.
So the whole purpose about this slide is to, and I'll be glad to speak with any parent. Email me. Our emails should be up there. We can get it at the end of the slide. Or Alexander, can you put my email in the chat, please? Yeah, H&M Brain Center. And so, because if your child is not getting themselves up and they're a senior in high school, they're not ready for college. If your child is not able to sit down and do their homework without you badgering them, they're not ready for college. If your child cannot cook a meal or prepare anything for themselves to eat or do laundry, they're probably not ready for college. If your child is chronically late, they're not ready for college. There's a lot of things that why send, they say most children, most parents pay full tuition the first year of college. While the child takes that first year off, they just don't go to class. Many of them just do like that, and they end up seeing the grades at the end. And that's how I flunked out my first semester of college. Is nobody was there to hold my feet to the fire, so I I would go when I wanted to. When I didn't, I wasn't. I was out there doing something I wanted to instead of what I should have been doing. Lost my draft department in the military, corrected that error in thinking, but you don't have to go to the military to learn these skill sets, but apparently I did. So these are the minimum things your child needs to be able to do. And if they're not doing them, don't send them to college to fail and come back defeated. Let's figure another way out. That's why we're here. That's why Morgan and we do what we do. She does what she does. We want to get them ready for that. Okay. Now, okay, so we're done with the presentation. Are there any questions out there? No questions. Okay. Okay.
A question. I just wanted some clarification when you said to use, would you say like talking when you're trying to like avoid impulse control, something like that? It was earlier. Was it like talking about having patience or just talking about anything in general? Is it like a distraction? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So when I was talking about talking out loud, it was as a way of modeling self-control. Sometimes, even though you might talk about self-control with your kids, they may not be able to kind of visualize it or see what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be controlling yourself. So, I mean, if I had a child, for instance, if I really want to go get something from the store, like a treat, like chocolate or something, but I know I shouldn't because I'm trying to be healthier or budgeting, whatever it is, I'll say out loud, wow, I really want that chocolate, but I probably shouldn't because so-and-so. And letting them hear you say that can model the thought process that they will hopefully eventually adopt for themselves.
And by that same regard, if you're talking about, I need to go to the store to pick up some things, but are there other things on my route there or back that I could accomplish, like filling up the tank with gas? And then you could brainstorm with your child, what all could we get accomplished in this one trip? And how would we make our route so it would take us the least amount of time to make the full rounds to get everything done? That's the thought process you want the child to be going through. Oh, I didn't think about that. Instead of making 3 trips, we can make 1 and we could go this place because at the time of day, it's going to be less busy and da-da-da-da. You know, you can go through that whole process, but that's how you teach, by, you know, demonstrating. Most parents just go and do it, and mothers are excellent at it because they have to take care of so much at one time, but I don't think they're good at talking about the processes that went into planning that trip, and I think the children could really benefit from that.
I would agree.
All right. Anything else here? Alexander, did you put in my email and everything?
I put in your email, I put in our YouTube channel, Instagram.
Oh, yes, thank you. We have got, what's the date of that open house?
December 4th.
On December 4th, we're having an open house here at our center from 9 o'clock until noon. It's come anytime, show up when you want to, leave when you want to. We're going to have different things, different areas set up, one for neurofeedback, one for biofeedback, one for what I do with medications, things like this. We've had these in the past. Saturday seems to be a pretty open time to come by. You can bring your kids, we can hook them up, let them see a little demonstration of what the neurofeedback is like. We're trying to do this ahead of time because we're going to have a brain camp during the 2 weeks of this winter break for the kids so that they can do intensive neurofeedback peak performance training for, you know, double sessions 5 days a week for 10 days. They come and watch a movie for, you know, 70 minutes. I mean, how many kids would balk at that? And we've got Disney Channel and YouTube and everything, Netflix to pick from, appropriate, of course. But I think this is an opportunity to introduce this concept of neurofeedback and brain training to everybody. And we just love to see everybody come out. So we'll have our open house and then we'll have our brain camp. Our discussions with Dr. Ron is then December 15th, and it's on addressing brain fog, this COVID brain fog that's hitting everybody. It's about 1/3 of the population are getting follow-up issues with cognitive functioning following COVID, and it's not going away very well. And we will be talking about that on the 15th. All right, I think I've got it. Stephanie, I'm going to turn it back to you and Pam to close it.
All right, everyone. That's some feedback. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone joining. So I will go ahead, and once I receive the link, I'll go ahead and send that out to everybody who registered. So even if you have friends or you know somebody who didn't register, if they register by today, I should be able to go ahead and send that out to them. So I will be happy to do that. And if you have any other questions about any events, I have them on the Fusion Galleria website. In fact, I'm working on it right now. It's sitting up there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few more things on the website. We do have a few other lunch and learns. Of course, we have the speaker series with Dr. Ron. So just keep an eye out. I usually put it on the Houston Galleria page first. So even if you Google Fusion Galleria events, then I'll be able to put it on there. And just keep an eye out for that. So I'll go ahead and send those out soon. So we look forward to seeing everybody, especially I will be there. Staying Ahead of the Game will be there. I think Pam will be there as well with ADA Southern Region. So we look forward to seeing everybody. Thanks for joining.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.